Have you ever caught yourself replaying a conversation long after it ended? Not because it was important, but because you couldn't stop wondering what the other person thought about you. Maybe you worried that you sounded foolish. Maybe you feared they misunderstood your intentions. Maybe you wished you had been stronger, calmer, smarter, or simply different. It's amazing how a single opinion can follow us for days, sometimes for years. A careless comment made in a few seconds can become a permanent voice inside our minds. Without realizing it, we begin living two lives: the life we actually live and the life we imagine inside other people's heads. We begin editing our personalities, choosing our words more carefully, hiding parts of ourselves, changing our decisions, not because they are wrong, but because we fear they won't be accepted. Little by little, our freedom disappears, not because someone stole it, but because we quietly traded it for approval. The tragedy is that most people never notice when this happens. They believe they're simply being polite, responsible, considerate. But beneath those beautiful words often hides something much darker: fear. The fear of rejection, the fear of criticism, the fear of disappointing others, the fear of being judged. And fear is a terrible architect. It builds invisible prisons, prisons without walls, without locks, without chains. Yet millions of people spend their entire lives trapped inside them. The Stoics understood this prison better than almost anyone. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire while facing criticism every single day. Epictetus spent part of his life as a slave. Seneca was condemned to death by the emperor he once advised. None of them escaped judgment. None of them escaped rejection. None of them escaped misunderstanding. Yet they discovered something extraordinary. People's opinions only become your prison the moment you believe they define your worth. This video is not about becoming cold. It's not about ignoring people. It's not about pretending criticism doesn't hurt. It's about discovering a freedom that cannot be taken away by applause or destroyed by rejection, because there comes a moment in life when you realize something that changes everything. The people whose approval you chased were never thinking about you as much as you imagined. And the peace you've been searching for has been quietly waiting inside you all along. Let's begin. The invisible audience. Imagine walking onto a stage. Thousands of people are watching you. Every movement, every word, every mistake. Now imagine living your entire life believing that stage is real. This is exactly how many people experience everyday life. They wake up wondering what others will think. They choose clothes based on opinions. They avoid opportunities because of judgment. They silence themselves because they fear embarrassment. They apologize for existing. But here's the strange part. Most of the audience exists only inside their own imagination. People are busy worrying about themselves, just as you are. Yet your mind creates the illusion that everyone is constantly evaluating you. Psychologists call this the spotlight effect. The Stoics understood it long before psychology gave it a name. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that fame disappears, opinions change, people forget. What seems enormously important today will soon become another forgotten memory. Think about someone you judged 5 years ago. Can you remember? Probably not. Now think about the mistakes you've made. You remember every single one. Why? Because we live inside our own minds. Everyone else does too. The prison begins the moment you mistake imagination for reality. You begin asking, what if they don't like me? What if they disagree? What if they laugh? Slowly, your decisions stop belonging to you. They belong to invisible spectators, and that is where freedom quietly disappears. The addiction to approval. Approval feels wonderful. There is no denying it. A compliment, recognition, respect, acceptance. Our brains reward us for belonging. Thousands of years ago, belonging often meant survival. Being rejected by the tribe could mean death. Although civilization has changed, our nervous system still carries ancient instincts. Today, a social media comment can activate the same emotional alarm that once protected our ancestors from isolation. Your body reacts, your heart races, your stomach tightens. Your thoughts become louder, not because you're weak, because you're human. But there is an enormous difference between appreciating approval and depending on it. The first brings joy, the second creates slavery. The moment your happiness depends on someone else's approval, you have surrendered your emotional freedom. You become cautious. You stop expressing honest opinions. You become whoever people expect you to become. Until one day, you no longer recognize yourself. Epictetus warned that if you seek something outside your control, your peace will always remain fragile. Approval belongs to others. Character belongs to you. One changes constantly. The other becomes your foundation. Every day you must choose which one deserves your attention. Most people never make that choice consciously. They simply drift wherever praise leads them. The Stoic chooses differently. He welcomes respect, but never builds his identity upon it. Why other people's opinions hurt so much? There is a question that almost no one asks, not because it is difficult, but because the answer changes everything. Why does a stranger's opinion have the power to ruin your entire day? Think about it. Someone you've never met writes a cruel comment. A co-worker makes a sarcastic remark. A family member questions one of your decisions. Objectively, nothing inside you has changed. Your character is the same. Your values are the same. Your abilities are the same. Yet emotionally, it feels as though something precious has been taken away. Why? Because the human mind has a dangerous habit. It mistakes opinions for truth. It hears criticism and immediately asks, what if they're right? It hears rejection and whispers, maybe I'm not enough. It hears silence from someone it loves and concludes, I must have done something wrong. Notice what happened. Reality disappeared. A story took its place. The Stoics understood that suffering almost never begins with an event. It begins with the story we attach to that event. Imagine standing in front of two mirrors. One is perfectly clear, the other is cracked. If you look into the cracked mirror every day, eventually you'll believe that's what you truly look like. Other people's opinions often become cracked mirrors. Some people criticize because they are insecure, others because they are jealous, others because they misunderstand you, others because they are carrying pain you know nothing about. Yet we accept their reflections as if they were objective reality. Marcus Aurelius warned himself never to surrender his mind to another person's judgment. Not because criticism is always false. Sometimes criticism contains truth. Sometimes it reveals blind spots we genuinely need to see. But wisdom lies in examining criticism, not obeying it. There is a profound difference. The emotionally reactive person absorbs every opinion. The Stoic investigates every opinion. One loses himself, the other learns. Imagine owning a beautiful garden. Every day people walk past it. Some admire the flowers. Some complain about the weeds. Some don't even notice it. Would you dig up your entire garden every time someone expressed a different opinion? Of course not. Then why rebuild your identity every time someone disagrees with you? The answer is uncomfortable, because somewhere inside us still lives a child searching for approval, a child who believes acceptance equals safety. There is nothing shameful about that. Every human being begins there. The tragedy is remaining there. Growing older does not automatically make us emotionally mature. Some people become 40 years old, yet still surrender their happiness to every opinion they hear. The Stoics invite us into adulthood, not biological adulthood, emotional adulthood. The moment you realize that your worth cannot rise because someone praises you, and cannot fall because someone criticizes you, you become dangerous to everything that once controlled you. That doesn't mean you'll never feel hurt again. You will. Words can still wound. Rejection can still sting. Loss will always leave its mark. The difference is this: pain will visit you. It will no longer govern you. There is incredible freedom in saying, I hear your opinion, but I refuse to build my identity upon it. That single sentence can change an entire life, because confidence is not believing everyone will like you. Confidence is remaining yourself even when they don't. The strongest people are not those who receive the least criticism, They are those whose peace survives criticism. Perhaps that is why Marcus Aurelius spent so much time reminding himself that reputation belongs to other people. Character belongs to you. One lives in their minds, the other lives in your actions. One changes with every conversation, the other becomes stronger with every decision. Choose carefully which one deserves your attention, because whatever you feed will eventually become your master. And if opinions have held you captive for years, there is only one path toward freedom. You must stop asking the world to tell you who you are. You must become the one who decides. That is exactly where our journey leads next, because the greatest leaders in history never built their lives upon applause. They built them upon principles, and no one understood that better than Marcus Aurelius. Continue. Marcus Aurelius never lived for applause. Imagine standing at the highest point of power in the world. An empire stretches across continents. Millions of people know your name. Every decision you make will be praised by some and hated by others. Every victory creates new enemies. Every success creates new expectations. Every mistake becomes public. This was not fiction. This was the life of Marcus Aurelius. History remembers him as one of the greatest emperors Rome ever had. But he never saw himself that way. When he wrote his private journal, what we now know as Meditations, he wasn't trying to impress anyone. He wasn't writing for history. He wasn't building a legacy. He wasn't seeking admiration. In fact, he never expected those writings to be published. They were conversations with himself, quiet reminders written in moments of doubt, lessons meant for one reader, his own soul. That alone tells us something extraordinary. Marcus Aurelius cared far more about governing his own mind than governing the opinions of an empire. Think about how different our lives have become. Today, many people spend hours crafting the perfect image, the perfect photograph, the perfect response, the perfect impression. We measure our worth through likes, through comments, through followers, through recognition. Marcus measured his life differently. Every morning he asked himself one question: will I remain faithful to my character today? Not, will people admire me? Not, will everyone agree with me? Not, will I avoid criticism? Because he already knew the answer. No. Someone would misunderstand him. Someone would accuse him unfairly. Someone would question his motives. Someone would hate him simply because of who he was. And Marcus accepted that before the day even began. Imagine how much lighter life becomes when you stop expecting universal approval. Most suffering comes from arguing with reality. We want everyone to understand us. Reality says they won't. We want everyone to like us. Reality says they can't. We want justice to happen immediately. Reality moves according to its own rhythm. The Stoics never wasted energy demanding reality become different. They learned to cooperate with it. This is where emotional maturity begins. Acceptance is not surrender. Acceptance is clarity. Imagine sailing across the sea. A storm suddenly appears. You have two choices. You can scream at the wind, demand that the waves disappear, complain that life is unfair, or you can adjust the sails. Only one of those choices moves the ship forward. Marcus Aurelius spent his life adjusting the sails, even while leading armies, even during plagues, even after betrayal, even after losing children. He kept returning to one simple truth. The obstacle is the way. At first, those words sound strange. How can the obstacle become the path? Because every criticism teaches patience. Every rejection teaches independence. Every disappointment teaches perspective. Every failure teaches humility. The obstacle becomes your teacher, not because suffering is beautiful, but because resistance creates strength. Think of a blacksmith forging a sword. Steel does not become strong through comfort. It becomes strong through fire, through pressure, through repeated strikes. The hammer appears destructive, yet every blow gives the blade its purpose. Life shapes character the same way. Every difficult person, every unfair situation, every painful misunderstanding, every moment when you wanted to defend yourself, was another strike of the hammer. The question is not whether life will test you. It will. The question is whether you allow those tests to make you bitter or better. Marcus Aurelius chose the second path. He understood something few people ever realize. Your reputation belongs to the world. Your character belongs to you. The world can destroy one, it can never touch the other, unless you hand it over willingly. There is tremendous peace in that realization, because suddenly, you stop living as an actor performing for an audience. You begin living as a craftsman shaping his own soul, quietly, patiently, day after day, without applause, without recognition, without needing permission. Perhaps this is why truly wise people rarely seem desperate to be noticed. Their greatest achievement is invisible. It is not fame. It is not influence. It is not success. It is self-mastery. And once you begin building your life upon character instead of reputation, something remarkable happens. You stop chasing validation, not because validation is bad, but because you've discovered something infinitely more valuable, inner freedom. And that freedom begins with a single decision: to stop asking the world who you are, because the answer has been waiting inside you all along. The freedom of not needing validation. Take a moment and imagine a life where no compliment could make you feel superior, and no criticism could make you feel inferior, not because you've stopped caring, but because you finally stopped measuring your worth through someone else's eyes. At first, that sounds almost impossible. We've spent most of our lives believing that confidence comes from being admired. We chase recognition at work, approval from our families, respect from our friends, acceptance from strangers. We tell ourselves these things don't matter, yet a single moment without them can leave us questioning our entire identity. Why? Because somewhere along the way, we learn to confuse validation with value. Validation is temporary. Value is permanent. Validation depends on the world. Value depends on your character. Most people spend years chasing validation because it feels like proof that they are enough. But validation is like drinking salt water. The more you consume, the thirstier you become. One compliment satisfies you for a moment. Then you need another promotion, another relationship, another achievement, another person telling you that you're worthy. Without realizing it, you've built your self-worth on a foundation that belongs to everyone except you. The Stoics recognized this trap centuries ago. They understood that anything requiring another person's permission can never provide lasting peace. Imagine a magnificent oak tree growing in the middle of a storm. The wind pushes against its branches, rain strikes its leaves, lightning tears across the sky. Yet the tree remains standing. Why? Because its strength does not come from what happens around it. It comes from what lies beneath it. Its roots. Character works the same way. If your roots grow into the opinions of others, every criticism becomes a storm capable of uprooting you. But if your roots grow into your principles, even the strongest winds become temporary visitors. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that a person's value is measured by the quality of their thoughts and actions, not by the applause they receive. Think about that. How many hours have you spent trying to impress people who have never truly known you? How many decisions were made because you feared disappointing someone? How many dreams remained untouched because you worried about what people might say? Perhaps the saddest prison isn't one built by walls. Perhaps it's the life we never live because we spend it seeking permission. Permission to change, permission to leave, permission to fail, permission to begin again. The Stoics would ask a simple question: who gave those people authority over your soul? The answer is uncomfortable. No one. We handed it over ourselves, little by little, one opinion at a time, one fear at a time, one apology at a time, until eventually we forgot it had always belonged to us. There is an extraordinary moment in every person's life. It doesn't arrive with applause. There is no celebration, no dramatic music, no audience. It happens quietly, almost invisibly. It is the moment you realize, I don't need everyone to understand me. I don't need everyone to agree with me. I don't need everyone to approve of me. That realization changes everything. Not because people suddenly stop judging you. They won't. Not because criticism disappears, it won't. But because your emotional center finally returns home. Imagine carrying a compass your entire life. For years, someone else held it. Every opinion changed your direction. Every rejection altered your course. Every compliment became a new destination. Then one day, you gently take the compass back. Nothing outside has changed. The world is still noisy. People still disagree. Life is still uncertain. But for the first time, you know where north is. Your values, your integrity, your purpose, that is freedom. Freedom is not controlling the world. Freedom is no longer needing the world to confirm who you are. Epictetus believed that the person who depends on external approval has unknowingly become a servant, not a servant to one master, but to everyone. Imagine living every day asking yourself, what do they want me to be, instead of asking, who do I choose to become? Those two questions create completely different lives. One builds a mask, the other builds a soul. The greatest tragedy isn't that people misunderstand you. The greatest tragedy is spending so much time trying to satisfy them that you forget yourself. Look back on your own life. Think about the moments you are most proud of. Were they the moments when everyone applauded? Or were they the moments when you remained true to your principles, even if no one noticed? Deep down, you already know the answer. Real confidence has never depended on applause. It has always depended on alignment. Alignment between what you believe, what you say, and how you choose to live. Everything else is noise. The day you stop chasing validation, you don't become distant. You become peaceful. You don't stop loving people. You simply stop asking them to define your worth. And that may be one of the greatest freedoms a human being can ever experience. But freedom is not the end of the journey. Freedom creates responsibility. Once you reclaim your mind, how do you protect it? How do you remain calm when criticism returns? How do you keep your peace in a world determined to steal it? That is where our final chapter begins. Reclaiming your mind. The freedom no one can take away. There is a quiet moment that changes a person's life forever. It doesn't happen when you receive praise. It doesn't happen when you finally prove your point. It doesn't happen when everyone suddenly understands you. It happens much more quietly than that. It happens the day you stop asking the world for permission to be at peace. For most of our lives, we unknowingly make a dangerous agreement. I'll be happy when they appreciate me. I'll feel confident when they respect me. I'll have peace when they stop criticizing me. But look closely at those promises. Every one of them places your emotional life into someone else's hands. Think about how fragile that makes you. If your confidence depends on compliments, one insult can destroy it. If your happiness depends on acceptance, one rejection can steal it. If your peace depends on circumstances, every unexpected event becomes a threat. Without realizing it, you've built your inner world on a foundation that moves every single day. The Stoics refused to live that way, not because they lacked emotions, but because they understood something that few people ever discover. True security cannot come from something you cannot control. Imagine building a magnificent house. You spend years making it beautiful. Every detail is perfect, but instead of placing it on solid rock, you build it on the surface of the sea. No matter how beautiful the house becomes, every wave threatens its existence. That is exactly what happens when your identity is built upon praise, reputation, or public approval. The problem isn't the house. The problem is the foundation. Marcus Aurelius returned to this idea again and again. He reminded himself that everything outside his character was temporary. Power would disappear, health would disappear, youth would disappear, recognition would disappear. Even his own name would eventually fade from memory. At first, that thought feels depressing. But the Stoics found it liberating, because once you accept that everything external changes, you stop trying to build your happiness upon it. Instead, you begin investing in the only possession that can truly become stronger with time: your character. Imagine waking up tomorrow with a single purpose: not to impress anyone, not to prove anyone wrong, not to gain admiration, but simply to become a little wiser than you were yesterday. How different would your day feel? You would speak differently. You would listen differently. You would argue less. You would forgive more easily. You would stop carrying conversations long after they ended, because your attention would no longer belong to the world. It would belong to you. There is enormous peace in becoming the guardian of your own mind. Every morning you make a choice. Will today's events decide who I become, or will my principles decide how I respond? That question separates two completely different lives. One life is reactive, the other is intentional. The reactive person wakes up emotionally unprepared. Every inconvenience becomes a crisis. Every disagreement becomes a personal attack. Every disappointment becomes proof that life is unfair. The intentional person experiences the same world, the same criticism, the same uncertainty, the same losses, but carries a different perspective. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" they ask, "What kind of person does this moment invite me to become?" Notice the difference. One question creates helplessness, the other creates responsibility. And responsibility is where freedom begins. Epictetus believed that no one can truly harm a person whose character remains intact. That doesn't mean suffering disappears. It means suffering no longer decides who you are. Imagine standing in front of a fire. You cannot stop feeling its heat, but you can choose whether to step into the flames. The same is true of anger, fear, jealousy, resentment. They will always appear. Being human guarantees that. Wisdom lies in recognizing that emotions are visitors. They knock at the door. They do not own the house. Too many people hand over the keys. One moment of anger becomes a lifetime of bitterness. One betrayal becomes a permanent inability to trust. One humiliation becomes an identity. The Stoic chooses another path. He feels deeply, but he remembers that feelings are weather. Character is climate. Storms pass. The sky remains. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson hidden within Stoicism. You are not responsible for every storm that enters your life, but you are responsible for the shelter you build within yourself. And that shelter is constructed every single day. Every time you remain calm when anger seems easier. Every time you choose understanding instead of revenge. Every time you refuse to let another person's opinion become your identity. Brick by brick, you build a fortress no criticism can destroy, no rejection can shake, no disappointment can collapse. That fortress is not built from pride, it is built from self-mastery. There comes a day when someone misunderstands you, and you no longer lose sleep. Someone criticizes you, and you examine their words without surrendering your peace. Someone rejects you, and instead of questioning your worth, you simply wish them well and continue your journey. That day, you finally understand what freedom feels like. Not the freedom to control the world, but the freedom to no longer be controlled by it. And perhaps that is the greatest victory any human being can achieve. Not over another person, not over circumstances, but over the restless voice inside that once believed peace could only be found through approval. Now you know better. Peace was never waiting in someone else's opinion. It was waiting for you to come home to yourself. If this reflection resonated with you, remember this. Every day offers another opportunity to choose your character over your reputation, your peace over your pride, and your inner freedom over the endless pursuit of approval. The world may never stop judging you, but it also never had the power to define you. That choice has always been yours.